While NFL Wildcard Weekend gave us one of the most unpredictable and physical slate of playoff games we've seen in years. We get into it next on Beyond the Locker Room. What a weekend of games, folks. What a weekend of games. Incredible finishes, unpredictable plays, some upsets. And, we're going to get right into it for the game that's now finishing up right now in conclusion. As I'm speaking, there's about a 2-minute warning, I think, as we speak with the Steelers and Texans. I am so disgusted by the Steelers. They said, I'm going to start this pod early and get this recording done, because what I watched for about 3 hours was an abomination. And I've told you guys all year how this is going to roll out, how this was a freight train about to end in disaster. First thing, props to the Texans. At this point, it's 30-6. I mean, the only thing, that they haven't done from a scoring standpoint is actually kick an extra point, which is just underneath the crossbar. But besides that, they were able to overcome 3 turnovers by C.J. Stroud and still win by that amount. The Texans, had a methodical game. They took a few chances down the field, but, I think, to be fair, that the Steelers defense held them in check as long as they could for almost 3 quarters. At some point, you need some help from your offense to keep these guys off the field. And you can see that the Steelers defense was getting worn down. The front, the 3-4 defense and that front 3, they ain't spring chickens out there when you talk about Hayward and Watt. And they just wore, and even Highsmith's getting up there a little bit. Like, they just wore them down. And the Steelers offense gave them nothing to help them out. All year I've been complaining about the Steelers defense, and I got to give them props, man. They came up big tonight for the they came up big in this game for the most part. If you just had to look at the box score, you'll see 30 points. You're like, what the heck are you talking about, Beyond? But honestly, if you watch the game, for 3 quarters they had them in check, but they got no help from their offense. And I can't even say what to say, because Houston didn't do anything spectacular on the offensive end, to be quite honest with you. Defensively, that front 4 of Houston was getting in on them Steelers backsides. I mean, Hunter, Will Anderson Jr., them boys were, and all the rest of them boys were getting after it. They were meeting at the summit. And of course, the summit was number 8 in black and gold. And I'll get to him in a second. But they were just, once you saw that happen, it reminded me a lot of the old Giants teams that won Super Bowls, that were obviously fueled by Strahan, where, in JPP, they were just able to just pressure at 4. And if you have a defense that can just get pressure at 4, it's like a cheat code. And once I saw by about the mid-second quarter that these guys were starting to get closer and getting closer and starting to put pressure on Rodgers, and Rodgers, like most old quarterbacks, you saw it in the last couple of years of Brady, they don't like getting hit. Now, don't get me wrong, no quarterback likes getting hit any time, but 40-year-olds really don't like getting hit. So they're more than willing to throw the ball anywhere just so they don't get hit. And you saw the happy feet, the penguin feet, they were starting to move around as the game progressed. I think, I know a lot of people kill Mike Tomlin, and I think on that note, just say this, I think this is it for Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. And I'm a huge Mike Tomlin fan, but it's time to kind of part ways. I think it's a good fresh start for him. I think it's a good fresh start for the organization, because I think they got to start from scratch and stop trying to find shortcuts and try to build from the middle. Sometimes you just got to take the medicine. As for the team that's going to be the victors, Houston, this is a team that was rolling coming into the end of the season. They haven't lost in months. They are just rolling. That defense is nothing to play with. They have 2 guys on the outside that can guard pretty much anybody, And then you throw in there, that secondary is already for real. And then you throw in that front 4 I mentioned. It is, and as Troy Aikman mentioned in the telecast, it's not like they put a lot of bells and whistles and gimmicks that kind of fool you. It's like, here, we just bring our 4 and we're manning up, and you can see if you can try to beat us. And most teams cannot beat them. And as Aikman said, it's hard to put together 8, 9, 10, 11 play drives on this team. You got to take a chance and go deep. So they will be an interesting matchup for New England next week. I think that's going to be a fascinating matchup with New England. I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like. I think it's going to be another defensive tussle. We'll get into New England a little later. But just to wrap up and put a pin on this game, Obviously I'm going to come from a little bit more, I'm being objective and I said my piece about it, but just as a little epitaph for the Steelers, I think this is it for Aaron Rodgers. I don't see any reason why he should be coming back. If I said Tomlin's gone, then Rodgers is gone. I just sent a tweet out about a few minutes ago where I said, it's like when you watch an old boxer, an old champ, and he's still out there, and he's just getting pounded round after round, the late rounds, and you're just asking like, no mas, just end it. That's how it was with Aaron Rodgers, running scared from the pressure, throwing balls over the place, and then kind of like his last salvo just now, he threw a pick six. And even when he tried to knock the guy out of bounds, I think I don't know, it was Petrie, I can't remember who it was, but he got bounced off and he ran right through and went in the end zone. It was a capstone to what the last few years of Aaron Rodgers' career has been. And you know what, I just said before, I'm no fan of Aaron Rodgers. I don't really get too much into like personalities when it comes to almost any athlete, to be quite honest with you. But I really don't like Aaron Rodgers as a player and as a person personally. But he's on my team. Try to do the best I can with it. I just leave it at that. But it was a fitting end to his career in some ways. I must admit, he's not a tough guy to watch or root for, to be honest with you. The size, the exasperation, the rolling of the eyes, the glares at players. I mean, I get it. Metcalf dropped the ball, but it was making a point in this case that the dude was icing Metcalf out for most of the game. However, the one time he did go for him in the second half is when the turnover and the turnover happened, where the fumble happened. When he's about to throw the ball and was going to go for a deep pass for Metcalf, who had about two strides on the defender. And fortunately for Houston, the pressure got to him. And I think it was Hunter, and fumble, boom, game. Essentially, to me, the game was done there. I think they only ended up going at that point to make it 10-6, maybe, or that was to make it 17-6. But at that point, you felt the game was done, even though it still was like plenty of time left in the clock. It is a psychological factor where it's like, you know what, this is a wrap. So I'll leave it there. Looking forward to Houston, New England next week. We'll get into the other games. Let's get back to some more fun, folks. Saturday night games. Let's start back and let's rewind the clock to Saturday. Wow. Saturday was crazy. I mean, Sunday's pretty damn good too, but let's get to Saturday. Rams-Panthers. I mean, the Rams, I said it on the Reese report before on the Thursday last week when we did our picks for this week. On the way, let me see. How did I do in the weeks? Let's see here. How many games we had? 6 games this week. Lost Pittsburgh. Lost. Yeah, let's go the other way. One New England. 1 the Rams. 1 Chicago. 1. I was 3-3 because I lost Jacksonville, I lost Pittsburgh, and I lost Philadelphia. So there we go, 3-3. So hey, man, just shows you, man. Yeah, it's tough out here in these streets trying to make these picks. But let's get back to Rams-Panthers. Rams found a way to escape, but I did mention, as I was saying on the Reese report, that this game was going to be a tight game. I thought the weather might play a factor into it. To some extent it did. But Stafford found a way late. He's known for the comeback. He threw a great ball on the sideline. And let me tell you something. As good as the pass was, I know everyone wants to, just glow, being the glow of Stafford when it comes to how he throws the ball. But when it's all said and done, man, that catch was really what it was about. Parkinson with an unbelievable catch. Not only he had to twist his body around for a man his size, but then the tippy toe to get back in bounds and make sure he got the touchdown. Impressive stuff, man. Impressive. But just to give a little props to the Panthers, Bryce Young, I said it before during the season, we've watched him grow. I mean, some people had him written out of the league after year 1. I thought even in this game, he wasn't spectacular at times, but he has a leadership quality, I think, that can't be kind of just passed over. He kept the guys focused even when they were down, and he's very opportunistic. That big play in the second half where they found a way to score late in the half, where I said that could be a big thing. End up getting them right back in the game, and literally with 2 minutes left to go, they score. I think it was just before just after the 2-minute warning. So you're thinking, okay, the Panthers have a chance here. They're up, they're up 4, and Stafford found a way. But it was nothing about Bryce Young from a quarterback perspective in my mind where if you're a Panthers fan, you should have your head down. I think they're going to have a nice young, a nice bright future ahead of them. They just need a few more weapons around them that really help him out. But I think overall, I like where I saw from him in the game. Rams move on. They go back. They move on. They go back to the unfriendly confines where the 12th man resides, Seattle, where there was that fantastic game, Thursday night game a few weeks back. I think game of the year. So we'll see if they give us an encore. You know me, man. I'll be wearing my Galloway jersey, and we'll see how that plays out in Seattle. But the Rams are onward, so we'll move on there. Next game. This one I had a feeling was going to be special. Packers-Bears. This game was unreal. I'll just say this. Do we even need to talk about the first three quarters? Or because let's just get to it. Packers dominating the game, dominating the game. They end up at 27-16, but they missed the extra point. And I'm always noting when an extra point gets missed because the percentage of you winning drops precipitously when you miss extra point. I said, 27-16 instead of 28-16. Put a pin in that. That's sometime early in the fourth quarter. Okay. They're down 18 points. I'm talking about the Bears. How appropriate that 18 is the number. Caleb Williams, once again, I mentioned it to Reese on the Reese Report. I know he's hating and stuff like that, but man, oh man. Even Cowherd just said it earlier today, man. There's an Elway-like quality. He mentioned a couple other names that have that ability too, where it's like the game, it looks like a hot mess for three quarters, and then the fourth, voila, here he comes, Captain Clutch type of stuff. And some of the passes he threw, let's face it, the pass of the year, I thought the one he threw against Green Bay on the sidelines a couple of weeks ago when they pulled out that miracle Saturday night game was something else after the onside kick. But this one, that throw is one of the best throws I've ever seen. And obviously we're in the world where you have Patrick Mahomes, and I've seen some crazy stuff from him. Matt Stafford with the no look. There's been some great passes over the years. But my goodness. You're running to your left, right-handed quarterback, throwing off the back foot where a man is literally about to get you at the shoelaces. You hop up to avoid the sack and throw a dime about 40 yards down the sideline. Unreal. On fourth down, I think 4th and 7. It wasn't like 1st and 10. 4th and 7. The game's on the line. They don't get the first down. It's a wrap. And my gosh, I don't know. If I'm not saying they will, but if the Bears were to win the Super Bowl, that throw, you know how you have the fumble and you have the drive for Elway, and you have all these iconic moments, the Steelers, of course, have the immaculate catch, all these type of moments. That's gonna have its own name. I don't know what they're gonna call it. I don't know, the Bears Bolt. I don't know what they're gonna call it. The Bears Prayer. I don't know what the name of it's gonna get called if they get the job done. But my goodness, man, I tell you, whatever. If you're a football fan, listen, Caleb Williams he's must-see TV, man. Get the popcorn. He's must-see TV. I think he had 177 yards the first three quarters. I think he had 177 in the fourth quarter, or 178 in the fourth quarter. Unreal. I don't know what that dude is, something else, man. And, there's a lot of controversy afterwards how Ben Johnson handled the handshake with LaFleur. I'm going to get to LaFleur in a second, but, I think it's much ado about nothing. Let's keep, okay, there's nothing wrong with a little friction. Bears don't like Packers. Packers don't like Bears. That's like that. It's like Hatfields and McCoys. It'll be like that till the end of time. So let's just move on from that. But back on the field. I said at the time, during that preview I did, and I think even on here on this show, a preview I did at Reese Report and here, I think, LaFleur is a guy I have to be questioning sometimes, and it wasn't a great game for him with some of the play calling there. And then, Jordan Love, who I think is a pretty cool customer, I don't know what happened on those last few plays around the 20 or 25 yard line when they're trying to go to the end zone. They had like a false start or something like that, or a penalty. Then afterwards, he fumbled the ball in the last play. It was like everything looked a little disoriented those last couple plays. And I'm not sure why, because they had the clock would stop, so I'm not sure. But, it just didn't seem like everyone was on the same page. he drops the ball. You try to make something happen. Threw it in the end zone. Of course, the Bears, picked it off or blocked it, slapped it down. Game over. But I thought overall Jordan Love played quite well overall in my mind. But I think I don't know. I understand being aggressive, but there's a time where you got to kind of manage the clock a little bit. And I thought the Packers in the fourth quarter didn't manage the clock well at all. Too many quick 3-and-outs to give more possessions to Williams and the offense for the Bears. Sometimes you got to know how to, kind of milk a little clock to make things a little easier for your defense, to make it a little easier for yourself, man. Get the game over faster. And I think LaFleur's play calling has been questionable sometimes in the past. And I think, there's rumors that, hey, he may go. Now, the Packers are like the Steelers for the NFC. I mean, it'll be in their cold, dead hands, to quote Charlton Heston, that they're moving off of LaFleur anytime soon. Like I say about Tomlin, I still ain't sure that the Steelers and the Rooney family get rid of Tomlin. So I don't see that happen with LaFleur. Packers are very steadfast, very conservative bunch, and I think he'll be there when it's all said and done after the dust settles. But the Bears move on. They're must-see TV. Caleb, fingernails and all, man. They said Mahomes is like Steph for football, and to some extent that is still the case because he's done so many magical things. But Caleb might be like the 2.0 version of it. Man, oh man, it's something else, man. So they will be hosting next week, and who shall they be hosting? Let's go to it. We'll move into the Sunday games. All right, so starting the first part of it, Bills, Jags. This was a great game as well too. We knew this one was going to be tight. This was almost like a flip 'em. Just like the Bears-Packers game. It was going back and forth. I thought, I mentioned all year how, Cohen's kind of treating Trevor Lawrence, not saying like a game manager, but they're being much more conservative with him. They've used his legs a lot more this season, and it showed quite a bit in this playoff game. He was 18 for 30, but he had I believe 3 touchdowns, but he had 2 picks, and obviously. At the end of the game, that was a tough one. I wouldn't even put that so much on him. I think it was great defense by Buffalo. The defender, the DB, popped it up a bit. Boom, deflection. At that point, it's anybody's ball. Bills come up with it. Game over. On the other side of things, Josh Allen, I thought, played a really solid game and did what he had to do. I mean, that run near the end zone to pretty much give him the game-winning touchdown. I mean, I think they're calling the snowplow, where he and the center just took about 5 Jaguars about 8 yards to the goal line. It was incredible. But Buffalo survives. As I mentioned in the Reese report, and I mentioned before, this is it for Buffalo, man. This is it, as the song says. If they don't get done this year, there's no excuses, really. You can make the argument coming into the playoffs in the AFC, they have the best quarterback. I think it's fair to say. The reigning MVP, the Buffalo has the experience, and even though they're coming in, as a lower seed and pretty much will have to play on the road for all the games to get to the Super Bowl, this is their year. There's no Mahomes in their way, that great behemoth that they have. That they have to exercise the demons. There's no Joe B in here, who's a cool customer, might take him out. There's no Lamar in here who could be a threat with his talent and skills. So you got the best quarterback right now at the party. You got the prettiest girl at the party at this point. Let's see what you're gonna do. Let's see what it's about, man. So Buffalo got through. Still a lot more work to do. And now with this game now done, we now see as the brackets are now filled out now completely. We got Patriots, Texans, and the Bills will head to Denver. Mile High, I still call it. Not sure what they call it, but I call it Mile High. And playing in the altitude's never easy, and Denver's always a beast at home. Traditionally in the playoffs. So that's gonna be an interesting game. I'll get to that. I'll give my picks at the end, but that's gonna be a fascinating matchup. Bills, Broncos. As far as the other side of Jacksonville, learning experience, young team. A beautiful moment in the press conference. I think the lady's name is Lynn Woods. I think she's a Jacksonville reporter, 20 years, I believe, on the beat. She gave a little buck up thing to the Jacksonville Jaguars coach. It was a sweet thing. I know some people will say, "Oh, where's the professionalism?" I mean, it's a playoff game for the NFL, guys. It's not like you're at the White House briefing. Let's pull it back a bit. they're all hometown, hometown papers and reporters. I've seen worse in a lot of ways, but I thought it was a sweet moment, especially these days. That was a nice moment overall. Check it out if you haven't seen it online. Let's move on. Second game on Sunday. This was pretty much the title bout, I think, for Sunday, and definitely the premier game. The defending champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, playing the San Francisco 49ers for round 3 fight. Brock Purdy's had some demons playing here, and obviously got knocked out like the second or third play the last time he played in that stadium. But I thought he toughed it out well and really kind of he's growing as a quarterback. And I think a lot of times in early his career you saw him. Some people would see him as a game manager. I think that was a fair assessment to some extent. But I think he's graduated from that, and he's a guy now. He can put the ball in his hands. He can carry the load if he has to. And I think you saw it in this playoff game where they lose Kittle, like literally right in the middle of the game. Obviously, that's his favorite target, and all pro caliber player. And you're wondering like, okay, how they're going to generate offense? Obviously, they have number 23, and they went to him a lot more. But you gotta give it to Purdy. Late in the game, he found a way to get the key touchdown. And made some key passes across the middle, to get it done. I think he got a big play to Jennings, I think, Purdy was great. I think the defense did just enough, but I'm going to get that side of the ball in a second. But props to San Francisco going into a cold weather place. You always wonder when warm weather teams go to cold weather places and vice versa, but they got it done, and they're moving on, and they'll face the Bears. I'm sorry, my apologies. They'll face Seattle, in the next round. They'll face Seattle in the next round with the 12th man. It wasn't pretty last time they played. The Rams will play the Bears in Chicago at Soldiers Field. That will be interesting to see. Stafford going back to play another NFC North rival. But back to the game itself. Let's go on the other side of the ledger. Philadelphia. All year, Philadelphia, I said, has had this Jekyll and Hyde where they're not sure what their identity is. Do they want to pass? Do they want to run? They never can seem to get the mix just right, Goldilocks. They can never seem to get it just right with the 3 Bears. And it came and bit them the you-know-where in this playoff game. I don't know what was going on. They seem to be almost getting in their own way. Drop passes, and I'll get to Mr. Drop Pass in a second. But, penalties at inopportune times. And then the other thing that was puzzling me, all this changing stuff at the line of scrimmage BS, and you're doing nothing. There's a great point was made today on ESPN on Get Up by Orlovsky and Rex Ryan. The offensive sets are not that complicated for Philadelphia. So I don't even know what they were doing, playing musical chairs, running back and forth, and Jalen Hurts is yelling stuff out. And it's like, what are we doing here, man? Because it's just killing your offensive flow. You're getting no momentum. It's disjointed, and you're eating up clock. And I'm sitting there going this is some of the ugliest offense I've watched all year in the playoffs. And then the Steelers came and said, hold my beer. I got one better for you. But I digress. Back to Philadelphia. At some point, listen, if you don't think, at this point, if you don't think Hurts is the dude, Sirianni, maybe you need to find new employment, because you gotta let the fella, the kids say you gotta let him cook a bit. Come on, this idea where we're kind of managing him like he's he's in year 1 is ridiculous. He's more than capable of handling things. More than capable. 2 Super Bowl appearances, played outstanding in both of them, and a Super Bowl MVP, Pro Bowler. He knows what he's doing. Enough of let go of the reins and take the training wheels off. I don't know what nonsense I was seeing out there, the play calling out there. And it definitely seems to be a disconnect amongst the quarterback. We know in this case of A.J. Brown and Sirianni, based on what we saw on the sidelines in that game, what he thinks of the coach. I don't know. I'm not saying that Sirianni's gonna go, but it is Philadelphia. I've seen stranger things in that town when it comes to of moves when it comes to being star players or coaches. So it's possible. Nothing would surprise me. But let's get to Mr. Brown, Mr. Reading Rainbow over there. Look, I get it. There's a certain thing how you have with shooters. They have to have the feel of the ball, or for it to see it go in, get enough touches and stuff of that nature. And receivers are kind of the same way. They got to feel it. They got to get a chance to get their touches to keep in rhythm. I get that. At the same time, though, you're a professional. You're an all-pro level receiver. 3rd and 7 with the game on the line. You drop the ball wide open. And you're sitting there going like, wait, you've been begging. And that's not the first time this year I've seen some drop passes in key moments. A couple of weeks ago, he had another one on the sideline too. He's put right in the breadbasket for him, and he dropped it. So, it's fine. You want to make noise about not seeing the ball. And, as I said before, you're reading Rainbow. You're LeVar Burton all of a sudden reading on the sidelines. Fine. You want to do that? Good. You do so. But make sure you're able to back it up. Because if you're dropping balls on 3rd and 7 with the game on the line, I don't want to hear nothing from you. I want to hear nothing from you, A.J. Brown. Nothing from you. All right? And the only thing that saved your backside for more people not mentioning it is that, that Goddard saved your backside on the next play. So no one's going to talk about that now. Because if that was 4th and 7, believe me, that's all everyone will be talking about for the rest of the offseason. So, like, that dude, you better get yourself straight, sir. You better get yourself straight. And Philadelphia overall, the defense, I think, was pretty decent. But that offense, man, something's got to change. I don't know, and I think Orlovsky made a great point on Get Up today, too, where it's like they've had a turnstile of OCs since Hurts has been the quarterback. And at some point, you can't expect Hurts to become a better player, a better quarterback, if every year you're changing, the offensive coordinators, and he has a new playbook he has to learn. That's, you don't care who you are. That's just ridiculous. Pick any discipline, any job, where it's like every time that you start a new year, you have a whole new plan that you have to go and research and study. How effective you are going to be as an employee. So Philadelphia, man, they got some long and heavy duty soul searching to do for the former champions at this point. Last game on Sunday. Last game we'll wrap up for now. Patriots, Chargers. Oh boy, this was a defensive tussle. It wasn't the prettiest game compared to all the other games, not including the one I just finished watching. But on the weekend games, this was arguably the least entertaining of the 5 weekend games. But it was still intriguing in its own right. It has interesting storylines. New England gets a big win, I believe 16-6. Scratch out the victory. The defense looked very impressive. I thought the Chargers defense overall was pretty good too, and they have a pretty good defense in their own right. Chargers. I think this guy. Listen, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. They got after Herbert and they got him sacked 6 times. But the question coming out of this to me is, if you're the Chargers fans, Chargers Nation, Lightning Bolt Nation, at some point, the discussion has to be had about Justin Herbert. At some point. I don't know. He's 0-3 in the playoffs. He blew like a 27-point lead where he couldn't actually sustain a drive just to keep his nose ahead of the Jaguars with like a second-year quarterback at the time. I'm just saying, man, like that. I said that there's an X gene with the clutch gene with Caleb Williams. And with Herbert, man, it's almost the opposite, man. If I'm a Chargers guy, I mean, they will say it, but I think if you give them truth serum, I don't think a lot of them dudes actually feel confident going in when they got their dude versus the other dude. I just don't think so, man. Herbert does not exude a winner's mentality where I feel like, you know what, we got that dude. Kind of reminds me of Aaron Rodgers in that sense, actually. And I know everyone's going to tell me, I know, Aaron Rodgers won a Super Bowl. I get you. But he ain't do much after he won that Super Bowl, okay? And there's been many playoff games where he's got that glassy-eyed look, and he's looking out in the sky, and he's there blowing heavy, where you don't feel really inspired to go and fight for that dude. That ain't Tom Brady firing up the dudes. That ain't Peyton Manning. You can say what you want. Those boys will play for Lamar Jackson. Mahomes, name the top quarterback. Herbert, in this case, I don't know if guys really, really feel it with him. I don't know. You guys tell me in the comments. Maybe I'm being too harsh on him, but I think the reason why I'm maybe being a little harsher is that the football media ecosystem has awarded him so much for doing so little. And it irks me when that happens with certain players. Anointed as a top 5 quarterback after like a year or two. Why? because he's 6'6", he has a gun of an arm, but he can't deliver when you need it most in a big game. Or when he's playing another top quarterback. Like, I'm sorry, man. I'm not anointing folks just giving away stuff and accolades to folks that haven't done anything to deserve it. And I mean, they got the coach for him supposedly. Harbaugh was supposed to be the medicine, and here we are again with a big question mark above his head. Anyways, this is about, to be fair, this is about the Patriots. Vrabel, always a great playoff tactician, got it done again, and New England will be hosting it, next week. As I said before, the Texans. So we'll see. Locker room takes, obvious locker room takes this week. Let me give you my picks coming up. AFC first. Number 1 seeded Broncos versus the Bills in Mile High. I call it Mile High. I don't care what the hell they call it. I call it Mile High. I mean, is this the team of destiny finally? Is this where Buffalo finally gets it done? You know what? I'm gonna say it. Bills in the upset. I think an upset. I think it's still an upset because I respect Denver at home. But Bo Nix hasn't really been here before. It's not like Sean Payton's had some great playoff record as well, too. Everyone wants to kill Tomlin on his playoff record. Sean Payton ain't got no great record either in the playoffs either. So I would say, you know what? Give me the team with the better quarterback, in this type of situation. That's Buffalo. So I like Buffalo in this game. And then we have here coming up Patriots, Texans. Honestly, I think I'm going for 2 road upsets. I like the Texans in this game too. Same situation. 2 second-year quarterbacks. I'm not sure if they really could get it done in the moment yet. True, C.J. Stroud's very young too, and he's second or third year himself. But Texas had that defense, man, and C.J.'s at least been in the playoffs once, so he's got the feel of it. And C.J.'s playing big games in college as well too. That's another thing too. So I like Houston, man. I like Houston a lot. I think that defense is rough. I know the Patriots defense is pretty good too, but to be fair, Patriots schedule is part of it as well. That kind of skews the numbers a little bit. They didn't play a lot of offensive juggernauts, let's put it this season. But I respect their defense, and Vrabel usually put together a very good defensive package. But I like Houston. I like Buffalo in the AFC. On the NFC side, let's start with my beloved Seahawks out west. I think they get it done. I know it's Sam Darnold. I know, but I think the defense will carry us forward and get the job done. I think with a week to prepare now with no Kittle, you can now see what San Francisco's up to. Obviously, they have a game plan for this time. We'll see. I suspect they'll go out with the same game plan right now and see what happens. They were very physical with them last time. We'll see how this plays out this time around. But Sam Darnold's got to keep his head together, no ghosts, keep calm. And, I think that, to be honest with you, Sam Darnold, I think actually more so than any quarterback is remaining, that first drive to me is really important for Sam Darnold to get a good sense of confidence in where he's at, head-wise. But I like Seattle to win this game at home. And the second one, Bears-Rams, man. Yo, man. I'm going for my man Garth, man. I'm going to ride those Bears, man, till the wheels fall off, man. Give me Caleb and the boys coming back, man. They might be a team of destiny. Who knows, man? Man, they're fun to watch. I have no problem watching them another week after this. And I don't, as I said before, I'm not a big fan of warm weather teams playing out in conditions that like Chicago especially. Give me the Bears. They're a takeover type of team, and the Rams could get a little sloppy with it at times. So give me Chicago to take that one. So Chicago, Seattle, in the NFC. So there you have it, folks. That's my final 4. Bills, Texans, Seahawks, Bears. 2 road wins on the AFC side, 2 home wins on the NFC side. I'll leave it there, folks. As always, you can find me on X, Blue Sky, Facebook, and I've just started. I just opened up an Instagram account, so okay, follow me there as well too, man. I'm gonna have some interesting stuff coming out there, and I'll tell you there on that platform what I'm doing on that one. Lots of good stuff to come, and as always, you can find me right here on YouTube. Like, comment, share, subscribe below. Give me the comments of what you think. Who your Final 4 picks for coming this weekend? Love to hear it. And once again, guys, always be safe out there. We'll talk next time. Peace.